is lowered. We're gonna have to do something about that lady introduction. I prefer the British AI voice myself. That one, she's everywhere for 20 years. Awful AI voice. Community dinner with the AI voice tonight, June 11th.
Yep.
Oh, I got it right. So we're on 61121. Doesn't mean anything, does it? And tonight we're going to talk about and in 2 weeks we'll be talking about the evolution of the gut. I'm trying to get that over there. The evolution of the gut and our own psychic evolution, which I started last week because we're doing a summer cleanse. And the reason why we cleanse is so we can change the amount of energy in our body. You know, the Taoists call it chi, prana. What did this guy call it? Gunther Enderlein, who I got some of my information from, is the guy who talked about the valence, V-A-L-E-N-C-E. And we live in a low valence because we have bad microbes that have taken over our gut. And as Michael Tierra, I've told you guys this a few times, as Michael Tierra said once in his herbal medicine manual, something I stewed on for at least 10 years, toxins are desires. What the F does that mean? You know, it's just like a koan I stewed on for 10 or 15 years. Like, is that like, is the toxin the desire or is the desire the toxin? You flip-flop it or? So yeah. We're set up in a world of duality to challenge our soul to grow on some level. And how much polarity can we take? And so when we're in a higher valence, we're sort of learning to embrace more paradox. Although the ego that would embrace the polarity does not actually exist. We tend to think it does, but we're sort of like living in a movie theater and we don't really know it. And but yeah, we get to control the movie at the same time on some level. So if you're always being run by your desires out of your gut, something that I had a direct experience with was the bugs downstairs and how much they were controlling my cravings and my thoughts. And you might have known Elsa Echeverry. Elsa Echeverry, I'd seen her 25 years ago, and I was talking about my horrible cravings after every meal. And she goes, "Oh, it's just the yeasty beasties." And I'm all, "Yeasty beasties? What?" She goes, "Oh yeah, they're making you crave sugar because they want it. So they're controlling your mind to make you think you want it, but they really want it." And I was like, "Elsa, that's genius." You know, genius level stuff. I was like, so then I started going like, oh my God. If I've been given 10 allergy shots in each arm from age 5 to age 15, 10 a week for 10 years, that's 18,000 shots and antibiotics every month of my childhood. And I was like, how am I alive? My microbiome must be just destroyed, you know? And, but yet it wasn't. And so I started to question the very basis of, Lars actually sent me a meme, which I have to actually repeat. It was so good. I'm going to thank Lars for this one. The meme is Willy Wonka. And he's going, so here you can see it on the screen here. And he says, "So you think you know who you are? Question mark. Explain the origin of each thought that you have." Is the punchline. And that's something I spent my entire life, literally since 5'5". Why did I have that thought? Why did I feel compelled to think that? Why do I feel compelled to do that? So I had this broad meta awareness for a lot of my life and didn't know what the hell to do with it. I think a lot of us actually have. And it's like, Adyashanti calls it the immensity looking out through my eyes. If you don't know what it is, it could be a little terrifying. And then, you know, the gut kind of takes over downstairs. And I tried to resist the cravings at one point and got knockout punch one Super Bowl Sunday. Literally, I refused to eat what they were craving. And I woke up like an elephant had trampled over my body. I got 11 hours of sleep to make sure I got enough sleep, and I passed out for 2.5 freaking hours because I wouldn't give into the cravings. And I woke up and I'm just feeling like something, you know, ran over me. I'm like, so I asked, this is after Elsa, I asked the bug, I go, "Did you guys just poison me because I didn't give you what you wanted?" And I get this like, And it was a terrifying moment to realize like I have something living inside me that's sort of against me. And I had to embrace it. And so part of our journey tonight a little bit is I'm going to go through this share screen PowerPoint while I'm talking to you guys, but people that are watching this will be able to follow along. So I have just some, for me, it's some memory joggers, really. And so Klinghardt, some of you know Dr. Klinghardt from London. "Who is consciousness?" is a quote from Dr. Klinghardt. We are all a composite of many personalities. And then he goes to the next sentence. Chronic infections outnumber our own cells by 10 to 1. Chronic infections outnumber our own cells 10 to 1. We are 90% other and 10% us. And I say, welcome to the bug ship. I'm Craig, captain of the bug ship, Craig. Captain of the bug ship, Kathy, Cindy, Jean, Jim. I'm the captain of my bug ship. Steer the ship well. So our consciousness, here's the next sentence. Our consciousness is a composite of 90% microbes and 10% us. That's from Clean Heart. I didn't say that. Our thinking, feeling, creativity, and expression are 90% from the microbes within us. Patients often think, crave, and behave as if they are the parasite. Our thinking is shaded by the microbes thinking through us. The food choices, behavioral choices, and who we like is the thinking of the microbes within us expressing themselves. To back that up, you remember Ingrid Naiman, right? Ingrid, live blood, dark field microscopy. Her quote a few years ago, she wrote something that blew my mind. She said, after doing live blood cell analysis for 30 years, I am convinced individual cells have individual personalities. End quote.
Interesting.
I've seen some of her work, and it's astounding to see cells running away from fungus. Literally running as fast as they can, and the mycelium is coming after them, all the hyphae. Oh my God, that's living inside me. And seeing red blood cells eating like donuts for these little blood parasites. She had this one clip. It's just these Pac-Men cruise along eating red blood cells like freaking donuts. It's terrifying.
Wow.
That's one form of anemia.
Of course. Yeah.
Parasites eating your red blood cells. You would have a low red blood cell count and a high white blood cell count. That's how you could differentiate that person in lab work. Or they have, I got a new one that's really fascinating. There's a normal lymphocyte, white blood cell count, but there's way more lymphocytes than neutrophils. You're supposed to have a lot more neutrophils than lymphocytes. So what does that mean? Chronic toxic accumulation. And so we're working through a couple of layers. The first one is she's autoimmune thyroid. And so autoimmune originates in the gut. It's no mystery. They knew this back in the 50s when they were doing enzyme therapy, enzyme nutrition, Edward Howell, he discovered that if you don't eat at least 51% raw, you will have a elevated white blood cell count an hour after you eat. And they called it digestive leukocytosis. And that didn't make mainstream press, did it? No, it didn't. And so I'm here, one of the few folks survived that has learned that most of the good nutrition and most of the good health information came before 1950. And most of it's been plagiarized and copied since then. There's not much new material that's come around, if you really think about it. But I did run across this Brown's gas thing from George Wiseman. And so I bought a water electrifier for $2,000, and it's on the way here, because this Brown's gas is fascinating me, this sort of hydrogenized water that you're going to hear about, this hydrogen water, electrolyzed water, but there's this old thing back in the 80s called Brown's gas. And there are people getting miraculous recoveries by breathing in this electrolyzed water, vaporized water gas. So it's this hydrogen ions and OH ions, because H2O separates into H and OH. And it's just fascinating stuff. So back to, oh my God, so guess who's talking right now? Is Craig talking, or are my bugs talking? I appear as Craig, but am I in fact, remember Alien, the movie Alien? Oh God. Is something gonna hatch out of Craig?
See, I think your delusions weren't that far off.
Yeah, I literally was watching a Netflix show today, and it was like, I felt like they'd stolen my idea, because I had that delusion like a while ago that people were part animals, and then I found
we're back to it.
that people were being
Part
like
bug too.
genetically altered to be part animal, and then there was a show that was like literally about that. It was like the apocalypse, and then there were half animal humans.
Yeah,
crazy.
Yeah,
I feel like there's a collective conscious.
Okay, so the next slide, I'm just going to go down the slides here. Thanks for that. But we're the one in control. And in the medicine wheel, people look at the Native American medicine wheel as two-dimensional, but it's three-dimensional. There's the four directions, but then there's an above and the below and the within. And when I started doing lodges and going deeper into this, I realized that the within is the gold of the chooser. And that's the first health foundation is if you're not clear and discerning, you're never going to get to health because health means being here. It means the same thing as yoga. Healing, healthy, whole. The root of the word health is whole. The root of the word yoga is you're here in the present moment. They mean the same thing. And so if you can't make good decisions to keep yourself here, then you're always in the past and the future. If you ever use caffeine, you're always in the future. If you always use depressant, you're always stuck in the past. There's future-based emotions and there's past-based emotions. And if you know how to look, you start seeing like, oh, I'm stuck in the past. So if you always have regrets, then what are you doing in terms of like, for me, I would set up a anticipation disappointment cycle, right? High expectations equals disappointment. Low expectations equals, oh, you're always exceeding. Right? That was the 49ers coach, Bill Walsh. That was how he psychologically messed with other teams. He would purposely downplay his team and overplay how good the other team was. And they'd go in all cocky and they would kick their butts. I spent my life doing that as a healer. Under promise. Therefore, you always overachieve. Under promise. Therefore, you always overachieve. Shanti does it all the time on stage. He goes, oh, I don't know if I can talk about that. I don't have any experience. And he goes on for 20 minutes, despite the fact of what he just said, the disclaimer. I just gotta love channeling. And the channel gets kicked in, So we're the one in control. That's the point of this is, so Kathy, you're familiar with this on some level, and Cindy, you too, is that there's a point where if we're discerning, it's factual, it's neutral. So think love, sign on the wall, great. I can see that, but if there's an emotional reaction, a polarity, a tension, then it's judgment. And that's what we spilled out of that fine line of living in the present moment into some, we were watching a movie about trauma last night with Gabor Mate, and like he said the same thing I did after all the work I did on the other side of the planet. He said the same exact thing last night. Every one of us has a trauma between birth and 8, and it runs our life. And almost all of our behavior. But then this whole thing with the bugs, then does that mean the bugs get traumatized? Because we're 90% bugs. Does that mean the bugs were traumatized or we were? It's like one of those like, well, wait a minute. That's kind of interesting. Traumatized bugs. Probably not a good sight either. You don't want to see traumatized bugs. It's a very fun thing. So then there's this thing like, I have this 5-element chart up here. You guys, I should get it on the full presentation mode. And so with the fire element, there's sadness and joy. And so the fire element, when it's not under control of water, because water controls fire, then we get the bipolar. And part of bipolar also is blood sugar swings. People always think their blood sugar is normal. And I tell them, if you have mood swings, energy swings, or hormonal swings, your blood sugar is doing this all day. And you can't measure the swing from 5 minutes to the next. Oh, my blood sugar is fine. I go, put out your blood sugar meter and measure it every 5 minutes. You will see the spikes go up and down. And that's the mood roller coaster and the energy roller coaster, because insulin's a primary hormone. Everything else sort of comes after that. And how do you know your insulin? You can determine your insulin levels by your choices, because insulin always follows carbohydrates. And so I'm here to teach a normal carbohydrate diet. Most of us are excessively eating carbohydrates. People say, oh, you're a low carb guy. No, I'm not. I'm a normal carb guy. Couched in context of metabolic type, where you live, what your ancestors ate, and your blood type.
I think also how active you are plays a role in how many carbs you can handle. If you're really, really active, I feel like my body can handle more carbs. If I'm sitting around a lot, then it's like the carbs knock me out.
And that's right. There's people that like, and then there's 6 types of carbs. So that's one thing we explore is like I do. If I do Bikram, I'll drink a quart or 2 of raw milk afterwards. So I do well with the lactose carbs. But grain and bean carbs, forget it. And I know that from personal experience of 20 years of seeing an hour after I eat. That's how we all see. Do what you want to do and check in an hour afterwards. Or test the food with the pulse test. I just sent it out to the group today. I checked cannabis today. I want to see like, I wonder if I'm actually allergic to cannabis. So did the pulse test and it was fine. So now I know. I was hoping it would come out bad actually. But you take your pulse and write it down, and you put something in your mouth for a minute and take your pulse again. And if it goes up or down by more than 5, you've got a problem with that because your body's telling you via kinesiology. And this is, I'm a big fan of objective results.
Pulse changes with blood sugar levels. Is that what you're saying?
No, the pulse will change because your body will say, I don't like this.
Oh.
So like if I put a cucumber Back in the day, it was avocado, cucumber, coconut, lentils, all normal foods for all of you. But I would feel like shit an hour after I ate it.
Same thing happened with me. My pulse would go from like 80 to 120 with grains and beans.
Right.
So I've been off for 15 years.
But that's how you determine in
That's how you know.
the objective reality. I hate muscle testing because it's like you can't get a repeatable result with muscle testing. And so at some level, it's quackery. Now, I've studied muscle testing and I'm trained in it. So the best muscle testers, they can tell you how and why they got the result they got. And that's a real healer. That's based in science. If you can't go backwards from how you got your result, you're a quack in my world. Royal Lee would do it all the time with standard process. He would channel the formula and they'd be like, how did you do that? And he would just say, divine providence. He channeled it, but then he'd work backwards and explain why each ingredient was part of the formulation. And we're all doing that. You're formulating your dinner. You're formulating your breakfast. You're formulating your bedtime. You're formulating your self-care. We're all formulating something. You know, we're creating something. And so by getting things stable on this fire element, then we see clearly in the light of day. But if we don't separate the pure from the impure, which is a saying in Chinese medicine that connects with the small intestine and the fire element, if we can't separate the pure from the impure, then we're not clear. And we don't know which decision to make. And then the bugs really are running our decisions. Sorry to say. So on top of that, Chinese medicine has a great saying about this. And it's when there's mucus obstructing the heart channel, you get psychotic behavior. Actually, I should go off the screen share for a second, show this to the audience. So you have, there we go. So if you're watching that at home, you can pause that. So remember we spent probably, Kathy, probably 5 or 6 community dinners just talking about mucus alone last fall at the other house. And all of them are recorded. There was some amazing, I mean, we had so much fun with it. I won't poke fun, Jim. We had a lot of fun with it. And so this slide basically shows on the screen here, when the biofilm develops, it's like how a mushroom develops, you know, stuff gets rooted into our muscles and our intestines, and then it gets rooted down there, and then it starts to multiply and grow. And then what you want to do is start knocking them down a bit and pruning the tree. And I'm going to talk about that in a minute. So the main thing is when you see mucus, how do you know the first sign of mucus? Where do you look to see first thing in the morning when you wake up? What do you check?
Your tongue.
Your tongue. Very good. You can also do the Candida spit test. And that one's done quite easily. You have a glass next to your bed and just have clear water in it. You, right when you wake up, no water, nothing, right out of bed, get some saliva, spit it in that water. And the more, so it should sink. And if it doesn't, you start seeing threads in the water. The more threads you have, and the longer they are, and all the weird stuff that forms in there, the worse your candida is.
Wow.
I check periodically. It's, you know, it's terrifying to check that stuff.
Only in the morning?
Best time in the morning, yeah, because otherwise you're drinking water and eating stuff. And so think about it, if you haven't put anything in your mouth for 8 hours, ideally all night, then it's just sort of a reflection of what's growing.
How much water? How much water?
I mean, just, you know, that much at least. And then let it sit for an hour, because you really want to see what happens. And there's an email, a little 8.5 by 11 slide I can send all of you. It just basically explains the process, and it gives you a little picture of what you should, you know, what it looks like. So I have 7 things that we look for in a healthy gut. I've never done this for this group before, but it's an old presentation and I'm adapting it to the new one, because this talk is called Evolution and Human Psychic Evolution. So gut and human psychic evolution tied in together. So there's the occupants themselves. So we've got viruses, we've got bacterias, we've got funguses, we've got those little fuckers. Mycoplasma. There's mycoplasmas. There's parasites. There's flukes. So the occupants themselves. And guess what, folks? These European doctors that I ran across, and they were thinking the same thing I was, that they can shapeshift by need. So Lyme is a classic example. They have a whole thing about Lyme, that borealis, whatever the name that it is in biology, is one form that Lyme can take, but it changes shape and form based on need. So the Borg, or the Klingons with their cloaked ships, we have literally Borg and cloaked ships inside of our body and trying to trick our immune system. And if you throw in the fact that, we might have some sort of natural ape evolution on this planet and their DNA was some maybe inserted DNA from the stars, then you're really looking at some strange stuff, which is possible. So the occupants, and the best no-brainer for occupants is have sauerkraut. You don't need to buy a probiotic formula, folks. Sauerkraut and Biofilm work quite fine because you want the soil-based bugs. And if you've got a guy in a lab with a fancy name and an ego title, I'm going to tell you, it's not the best, because this pathetic thing can't think of the resources of the entire universe. And so the basis of my practice is getting back to nature as much as possible. So use sauerkraut. I have no less than 5 physicians that know about the body, and that's what they say. Probiotic supplement, what do you recommend? Sauerkraut. Including John Hicks, who's dead. They wiped him out a few years ago over in San Jose. You know John and Betsy? You ever know them? Oh, what a delightful couple. Well, he's gone now, but Betsy's still around, and she's a fiery little thing. So he was a physician. Kelly Deary knew him, and he did a beet kvass video. He's on my YouTube channel talking about beet kvass and sauerkraut as an MD. So we got him on film before he died. So there's the occupants. That's number 1. Number 2 of the 7 things in healthy gut is the tissue they occupy. So, think of your skin. Well, there's skin. Same cell here as all the way down. We actually only have 4 cell types in our body: skin cells, muscle cells, nerve cells, and connective tissue cells. And there's just variations on those 4. So that's why when the Chinese doctor looks at your tongue, he can say, well, in this context, your gut, the tongue is a great reflection of the gut. So if it's swollen, the intestines are swollen. If it's too red, the intestines are too hot. If it's too pale, the intestines are too cold. There's the coat there, because the coat there is analogous to your rainforest. See, if you don't have any hair on your body, then the coat will present this shiny, like a clear lake. We call that stripped tongue. And the best, I'm not going to show it again because I've shown it so many times, but remember the gut cell with the hairs?
Yeah.
And that's from the Gap's book. Remember Dr. Natasha's the image of the healthy gut cell with the big afro and all the enzymes, and then the unhealthy one with all the bald head and just a few little hairs coming up and it's all unhappy. The other one's all yippee, and the other one's all and oh my God. So you want to give nice apartments for your bugs to live in, right? A lot of us have a slum down there, unfortunately. I know I did. So you want to get good apartments for the occupants, right? Then the next third thing is the mucus layer made on your gut, or the biofilm, or the mucoid plaque, or the slime, whatever you want to call it. And that mucus layer has the same intelligence from the top as the bottom. So there's one signaling mechanism. It's all one thing, like the kombucha SCOBY is one thing. So think of a kombucha SCOBY from your tongue to your anus, and you're kind of looking at the right way of looking at it. I used to overeat. I'd have my, when I was at my worst, I would crave sugar after every meal. Why? Because I would feed myself and the bugs would demand to be fed too. Because I wasn't breastfed. And the first thing that went in this body for months was soy sugar formula. Because they talked my mother and all her sisters out of breastfeeding because formula is better. Because some scientist asshole thinks he knows what's better than nature, than a breast. You wonder why there's so many traumatized children running around, because they need that closeness with the mother. But that's it. So you want to make sure that mucus layer, that's another one, the coating on the tongue tells us. Big, thick coating downstairs, more potential for parasites. Too thin a coating, then you're clear cut and you can't make enzymes to process your food, which means it turns to rot, and then you have a fungus problem because fungus's job is to eat rot. Dr. Natasha at one of the Weston Price Foundation someone was asking her about salmonella and, food poisoning. And she goes, stop blaming the bugs for your own rot. And I couldn't agree more. The bugs are just doing their job. This lady was whining about her salmonella poisoning from some chicken or something. Dr. Natasha wasn't having any of the victim stance. I just love that. She's like, stop playing the victim. You caused this. That's what we need. We don't want victims. We want empowered people making responsible choices based on discernment. Great. The ability of the tissue to make mucus is the fourth factor, right? We call that yin in Chinese. You have to be able to make yin. Because if you can't make mucus, what happens in the stomach? Well, you got this acid pH of about 2.5 that could dissolve your finger. If you can't make mucus, you don't have a stomach lining anymore. Those people that they're always wanting ice and they always want something cold drinks. Their stomach's too hot, not enough mucus, too much heat. So bitter is the more skillful way to cool that off. Bitter vegetables, bitter herbs, bitter vegetables. Like dandelion root, great, right? For heat. Echinacea, great for heat, Then the building materials provided to make the mucus. So when I say that, what do I mean? The building materials provided to make the mucus. That's number 5. The building materials provided. What do I mean by that? There's one word that I just love it because it sounds so weird. Mucopolysaccharides. Mucopolysaccharides. That's fine. So everything's pretty much made of carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, sulfur, and nitrogen. What David Stewart calls in his chemistry book, the chosen ones. That's how I remembered this, that most of life is made of those 5 elements. And they're just Lego building blocks put in different arrangements. All carbohydrates are carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. That's all pure refined sugar is. CH and L, that's all fat is. But they're just arranged differently. And their frequencies are different. So you have to have the right building materials. And so if you don't have slime, then you need to get slime. And some of the slime plants are flax when it's soaked, right? You can actually boil flax seeds whole in water and make flax slime. Comfrey, the mallow species, which is marshmallow. Purslane, I put purslane in the salad. What's a slimy? Okra. What's your slime foods? That's how you build your mucus. What else is slimy?
Eggplant.
Eggplant, slimy. Eggs are slimy. Snails are slimy. Sure. So you're getting where this is going. I'm telling you how you take care of your gut in no uncertain terms. The 6th one is the blueprint to make the tissue. And this is what Roy Lee called the protomorphogen back in 1940. Started making these protomorphogen products. So if you break out the word protomorphogen, proto, meaning what's proto? Kind of a Latin for protein. You just keep it simple. Proto, protein, form. What's a morphogen? What's the morphogenic field? That's from the Celestine prophecy. They first talk about that. The morphogenic field. It's the blueprint that the plant or the animal or the being grows into. So the morphogenic field is the field from which they grow. You became Drew, we all became whatever we became, right? So you want the blueprint to make healthy gut cells, to be healthy. So when you have an autoimmune something, one of the main reasons for our immune system that you're never going to hear outside of this freak show is that your immune system is around to patrol your bloodstream for lysed or destroyed DNA from cells that have lysed the DNA out. Why would your immune system be so concerned with that? It's one of its main functions. I just mentioned autoimmune, that's one clue. What's endometriosis? Anybody knows? Endometriosis is
skin tissue inside the uterus, right?
It's the uterine cells being made in the endometrium. Endometriosis. So the syndrome in the endometrium of making uterine cells because the uterine DNA has lysed out and the body got the instruction manual to make uterine cells in the wrong place. So that's a major part of the immune system. That's why you get autoimmune, because the immune system's saying, shit, I'm following this garbage trail back to the organ. I need to destroy the source of the problem. So this new client of mine has thyroid. It's traced it all the way back to the thyroid, but the thyroid's not the original problem. The original problem is in the gut. Remember, it always goes back to the gut. So you want a healthy blueprint, and that's why I use the standard process protomorphogens. People talk about stem cell this and baloney that, and I go, clinically, they've been getting results since 1940 with these products. I've got 12 years under my belt, and they've got one for every system in the body. So, why not try them? Because if you have a bad reaction to it, it means you really need it. You can actually diagnose all your organs just by taking the protomorphogen. And everyone you have a bad reaction to, those are the systems that are extremely upset because the protomorphogen is saying make healthy cells, and you're not. So it provokes an immune reaction. It's actually a histamine response. It's one of my favorite things. We could actually do a journey, and then we get started in 2022. We're all going to go through one protomorphogen and check all of our organs over the course of a year. Every community dinner will take one. But then if you have a bad reaction, you're going to hate me because you're not going to feel good. So much for that. And the final seventh thing, which no one would probably ever guess, is in a healthy gut, you have to look at the waste or what's upstream. So the bottom of the watershed is our anus, right? So the Earth's metaphor for that is the water that comes out into the ocean, right? In a sense, the beach is the Earth's rectum. Into non-glorified.
Wouldn't it be more the urethra?
Or the urethra, sure. It's a drainage channel. Sure. Could also be the yoni, depending on where you're looking. We need to glorify it a little bit because, So if you have, say, cows grazing upstream at the top of the mountain and you're drinking water downstream, there could be stuff from their poop in that water, right? So I say this because a lot of gut cases are actually sinus cases where the poisons from the bugs living in the microfilm around is dripping down into the gut. A lot of gut cases are brain cases. The thermostat's broken. And if the thermostat's broken, the house is never going to be heated properly. The pituitary is a major player in a lot of colitis cases. As a matter of fact, I tell my clients, if you get stuck and lose me, just think brain. Start working with your brain. So the waste of what's upstream, and so if you have cavitated infections in here, or you're not chewing your food, is the most obvious one that we can control, right? And those darn macrobiotic people. If you had cancer, you had to chew each bite 300 times.
Wow.
They told me 50. And I was the fastest eater in my family, and me and my brother would race to see who would eat the fastest because we always want to get to dessert faster. The bugs were making us race to see the 90% bug, like, my bugs are faster than your bugs. Oh, goodness. So the waste upstream contaminates what's downstream. And so if you think you're not chewing well, then everything downstream has to work harder. So the minimum, the only exception to not chewing is there's actually some devil's advocates about meat should not be chewed that well. What do you think? What do these devil's advocates say you shouldn't chew meat well? Those dogs, I've seen a dog inhale a whole steak. Just, no chewing. I'm like, how did you just do that? Just inhaled it. I'm like, wow, they must have strong stomach acid. They don't even chew it.
There's no fiber in meat.
I know, it would just stick there like a cork.
It's probably like the fiber that makes the chewing more than the protein.
So yeah, the main reason is because you want the meat to sit in your stomach and get broken down by the acid. You don't want meat going through your stomach fast. You want it in there 3 to 5 hours. Which is why meat in the food combining stuff.
Stay in there longer if it's not chewed though?
I'm giving you data from devil's advocates. I'm not saying I practice it. It's just, I like to present both sides, like chew, and then some people say, don't chew meat as much. And Gandhi had a quote, chew your liquids and drink your food. And drink your food. That was a Gandhi quote.
That's because chewing is the brain. Chewing is essential.
See that? Your stomach meridian it starts under the eye, goes out over the jaw and down. So you're literally signaling your meridians in your nervous system on how you chew.
I always wonder about supplements when you're doing all these supplements and how long does it take them
because you can't chew them. You
I
can't,
do.
I mean, you can, but they, yeah. when you do
The
a
ones I
lot,
got,
they
you can't,
taste-
because they're food.
Yeah, you do a lot, they don't taste, or you put them in something else to, yogurt or whatever, and they don't taste good.
I'll tell you guys how you know. We're more energetic beings than we realize. So Standard Process, the founder of Standard Process made the predecessor to the EKG. They called it the acoustic cardiogram back in 1930 something. And so the new one, the newer version of it, you hook up to your computer, is called a heart sound recorder. And so what they do is they'll measure your S1, S2 wave, the lub dub, goes lub dub, and then a flat line, and then a lub dub. And there's a certain distance of all this in ratios. And so I've seen it for myself. And so I went in one day, I played devil's advocate for this one practitioner. I had a cup of espresso. He was measuring my heart sound recorder, and I was fine. I'm gonna throw a monkey wrench in the system. And he, for 90 seconds, he was just perplexed. He was like, I don't know what the fuck I'm looking at, because my heart was never at rest. He said in between the lub dubs, it's supposed to go flat, and mine was always fluttering. He goes, he didn't know how to say it, but he goes, you're not gonna live very long. Like, I was fucking with you. I'm on espresso. And then he gave me the Cataplex B, which regulates heart rate. And I usually take that, but I didn't take any of this day. So I chewed up 3 of those, and within 5 minutes, the heart sound recorder was normal by chewing it. If I would have just eaten it, it would have taken 30 minutes to get the same result. So it's something about the act of chewing that the macrobiotic people used to say tells your body where to put the food. Yeah, it's huge. It's way more than we thought, than I even thought. So I think everything's frequency and energy. And so by not chewing, you're kind of telling down below, ah, fuck you.
Yeah.
I don't care about you. I'm going to give you more work to do.
Here we go.
It's kind of like I used to have this thing with night guy, morning guy. I've told you a few of you this story. If you're always up late, then your morning person's always fucked over by your night person. It's a terrible relationship to have. I actually developed a meditation about it. I call it Future Craig Veto. Hey, Future Craig, what do you think? And veto. You're not staying up late because I need to do something in the morning. So yeah, future Kathy veto, future Lars veto, future Jay veto. Oh boy. So the biofilm is a normal coating on the villi. I just want to make that clear. And the place I was leading us to, let's see, this slide basically shows the gaps, the little gaps critter again. So if you're watching this on film, on the lower right corner is with it's a healthy intestinal cell and a not healthy one. And there's little diagrams of the gut villi on this particular sit. So what lives down there? Well, I have some photos here. I mean, you guys saw this last week. I showed you one of the things that I passed, and then there's some mucoid plaque, and then there's a photo of a worm and some candida threads. So, you guys, until you're willing to do the work, you don't know. And I took 5 to 10 years of my life to turn my insides out and flush them out. And now I'm a better person because of it, that's for sure. I don't think I'd be alive, to be honest. I mean, because I was going down in my 41, 42, I thought I was going down for sure. And then Standard Process came along, thank God. So what we do not digest, digests us. It's one of my aphorisms. What we do not digest, digests us. So you better chew your food well. And then see, it's back to this lower form of consciousness. This is what I want to kind of get to. Because it's the motivation to set an intention to cleanse is this stuff over here. Do you want to live on a lower state of energy run by bugs that are basically animals? Or do you want to live in a higher state of energy being run by bugs that are going to help you live in a higher state of energy? And what do you think is going on from the top down right now, folks? We're being asked to live down here. Experimental messenger RNA technologies, rights being taken away, food supply being taken away. I mean, even, it's amazing how hard it is, more than ever, to live healthy.
Right now, blood is really affected, right? Oxygen.
Yeah, fear causes hypoxia. And the gaslighting going on is incredible to me. And even the alternative people are way off. If you look at Morley Robbins and the root cause protocol work I've been telling you about, everything that's being set up for the COVID recommendations offsets oxygen, iron, and copper metabolism. Taking zinc without copper is a bad idea. Taking ascorbic acid is a bad idea because it chelates copper out of the body. Taking D3 is a bad idea because it upsets copper metabolism. So we're not being fed the whole truth. So I say, if you want to, the best thing to do is get live plants out of the earth. There's your vitamin C. Vitamin C is your water-soluble sunlight vitamin. Vitamin A is your fat-soluble sunlight vitamin. D is your sunlight filter. D is way overplayed. And all the studies, the 10,000 studies on D that they'll cite for you, are only apply if your D, your storage form of D that you measure in your lab work's below 20. And very few people have it below 20. What's vitamin D made from? What's the backbone molecule? No, the backbone molecule in the body. Cholesterol. Same thing as your stress hormones. Vitamin D, D3, you're taking a hormone. It's the only over-the-counter hormone sold.
I'm not taking it.
And it's telling your body, get nutrients out of the periphery and put them in the bloodstream. That's why when you're in the sun too long, you get tired and sunstroke. That's vitamin D toxicity. Our ancestors took vitamin F to offset that, which cod liver oil has in excess, or they would soak barley or grains and they would boil that soaked grain water, and this vitamin F would come out of that. And you don't hear about this because remember, I'm here to teach process. And so vitamin C is a process of sunlight getting into a plant, and then it's gone basically in 24 to 48 hours. They measure this stuff, you know. You pick a green bean, the vitamin C content's down 80–90% after 24 hours. And we're buying our new leaf vegetables that are 3 or 4 days old thinking we got vitamin C in them. No, they don't. That's why I'm telling people, get yourself a garden and have one plant growing you're devoted to and eat that every day or some form of it. That's how you're going to offset the death that's around us and the nanotechnology and all that, because it's all death. It is the mark of the beast. You want to be a beast or you want to be a higher level being. That's your choice right now. Because you have the world living by the beast right now. You know, and USA Incorporated has got a big orgasm. You know, well, the bankers running USA Inc., I should say. What's next here? So this PowerPoint I put together a while back, and they were talking about chlorella back 15 years ago, and clay and plant sterols. And so, what's one plant sterol that I've been thinking about a lot lately is Bacopa moneri, or brahmi. It's very high in steroidal saponins. And it's the most commonly cited herb that's related to intelligence. You know, I'm growing the hell out of it. I've been growing it for 20 years in little pots and carrying it around with me everywhere I go. Are you kidding me? It's like growing pure gold. Saponins, S-A-P-O-N-I-N, and that's a soap molecule. A saponin is a soap-like molecule. So when you soak quinoa and you rinse it off, you'll see it get kind of bubbly because there's saponins.
Is that the name of the plant?
No, Bacopa is the name of the plant,
Bacopa, okay.
but the compound was talking about plant sterols helping with detox the gut. And there's a whole list. There's cilantro, cholestyramine, you know, all this stuff that you probably don't want to hear about, but
She tried to write Bacopa and Siri changed it to no cops.
that's what they do. That's what they do.
Defund the police.
So the next slide has a Taoist quote. The bright path seems dim. The straight road seems crooked. And in the English translation, we often fail in our endeavors when we're on the edge of success. The gut is like this, and spirituality is like this. Sometimes it's counterintuitive. And so the bright path seems dim. Like, and a lot of spirituality is going into our suffering, not avoiding our suffering. It's natural as an ego to avoid suffering, but the very thing that brings us to the bright path is being willing to go right into our pain and trauma. Right. When you block one emotion, you block all emotions. Brene Brown. This is the one I wanted to. Your attitude is vital. Your attitude is absolutely vital. So quick story. I had 10 minutes. Yeah. I had to end the war inside myself because I was talking to these bugs like I was going to wipe them out. And if these bugs are in fact 90% me, then violent thoughts, tensions, shoulds, and others will slow your progress, is the quote on the side here. They are listening to you. They know what you're thinking before you think it. And the story was the Castaneda, I use this story a lot, but Castaneda and his teacher, Don Juan Manas, were out in at the northern Arizona desert. They know they're being stalked by a mountain lion. And Castaneda's like, what do I do, teacher? Teacher's like, we're fucked, because it knows what we're thinking before we think it, because it lives in the present, unlike us. We live at a time delay. So
The vagus senses the vagus nerve.
it's living in a world that we can't comprehend, because we can, but we don't usually live in the present. So what do? The teacher's like, we have to do the unexpected. And so they were able to escape out of that northern Arizona desert by taking their clothes off and running around doing strange things for the next hour. And the lion's like, well, leave them alone. They're psychotic. So with the bugs, I took the tame tact. I wasn't getting results for 2 or 3 years, enemas, trying all this stuff, and wasn't getting satisfying results. And then I got that insight of maybe I should end the war. So I told the bugs, I said, hey, how about if I just prune you guys? You've overgrown, your tree is overgrown. What if I just prune you? And then I started getting results.
Stop trying to knock me
I
out.
end the violent language. I ended the self-hate, because if they are a part of me, then I'd better embrace what's a part of me. And that's why I started making massive progress in the next 2 years. Because everything eats and shits. Every single thing on this planet that's alive eats and shits, including the 90% of bugs living in your body. When we talk about inflammation, well, if they're 90% of bug, then most people's inflammation is bug shit. That's within our control to feed properly.
Well, we're eating the bug shit.
We're processing it. Yeah, we are.
I mean, some of it makes a lot of stuff that we need.
So there's a medical doctor, this guy's the Better Health guy. I have the link here on the PowerPoint. This is a quote from this dude. He says, treat the parasites first and then the Lyme, and you get faster results. Parasite patients often express the psyche of the parasites: sticky, clingy, impossible to tolerate. But a wonderful human being is behind all of that. Third one, quote, patients will reject all treatments that affect the issue that requires treating. Quote, patients will reject all treatments that affect the tissue that requires treating. Patients will not guide themselves to health when the microbes have taken over. I couldn't agree more. Fourth, parasite treatment may be needed for 6 months to a year. Bullshit, 3 to 5 years. 5, parasites induce changes in our system to make us a comfortable host. 6, every biofilm has worm DNA in it. Repeat that, number 6. Every biofilm in our bodies has worm DNA in it. Number 7, the more you deworm, the longer you live and healthier you are. Now, I'll play devil's advocate with that, because Michael McAvoy and I have seen NIH studies that show they do give live worms to people with autoimmune, and their autoimmune, especially asthma, goes away. So why would that happen? Why would giving live worms to someone with an autoimmune condition that's causing asthma, why would that make them better?
Because your immune system's some target practice.
You've heard me say that, didn't you? Good. When the worst case thing happened when I was in the 90s, before I met you, I was studying the hygiene hypothesis. Remember that? And they were correlating over sterility as children with autoimmune conditions as adults, and high levels of COPDs, asthma, and allergies.
Zach talks about that in detail in his latest book.
Right. We were talking about this in the 90s, for God's sakes. You know, so we have a lazy immune system, right? Oh, everything's sterile. I don't have to do very much work. And then they're just lazy. Oh, I don't do anything. Oh, there's a bug. Oh, I don't care. Go ahead and eat my liver. I mean, right? So they need target practice. And so, yeah, the autoimmune goes away. And I believe now what Hildy Clark said in The Cure for All Cancers, that 90% of all humans have parasites. I believe that now, but I believe that some worms are necessary for us in a certain level of balance, because they're eating rotting matter too. You guys, I've seen, the Richard Anderson Rise and Shine stuff, they would have those black tar that come out of people. And this one guy stretched his out. Did I tell you guys this? It had little pinholes in it. And so when the people would eat the food, the pinholes in the biofilm were where the worms would come up and eat the food as it cruised along. It's like little whack-a-moles. They'd come up. Oh, it's so gross.
Yes, it is.
And I'm living inside me doing that. Oh God. Oh, it's a horrendous thought.
Gonna have to take some lemon balm, take the edge off. I'm saying that right now.
Number 8, let me finish the last one. When the latest medical therapies fail, think dental issues and parasites. Amalgams, root canals, TMJ, galvanism, implants, heavy metals, bonding materials, metal allergies all need attention. And I talked about this earlier about, water dripping down. So a lot of problems are people's cavitated infections in here because mercury, the candida, the fungus will take mercury from this and use it as shield from our immune system. That's from Ingrid Naiman, actually. So if we have a heavy metal, like we do a hair mineral analysis in my world, if you show high mercury and heavy metals, then we almost certainly know you have a bug problem, almost certainly. And you got to go through the layers. This isn't like, one cleanse and you're done. You're probably all figuring that out by now. I thought it was going to be like, a couple cleanses, I'll get enlightened. My life will be easy. 25 years ago, yeah. Wish that guy's still around. And I think, honestly, the fastest way to get results are enemas. It's the gold standard for fast results. If you're willing to, stick something up there and flush yourself out. No, I'm gonna go to the next one. Here we go. Some more biofilm data from these doctors. Biofilms are structured community of bacterial cells enclosed in a self-producing polymer matrix and adherent to an inert of living surface. Slime in a stream is biofilm. That's interesting. Slime in a stream is biofilm. Number 2, biofilm is an aggregate of microorganisms where cells adhere to each other and or to a surface. Like you see it on the white mold, right? That's a biofilm. It hadn't quite grown through to the sheetrock yet, right?
Black mold.
Excuse me, the black mold that you saw, right?
Yeah,
And
hadn't grown to the sheetrock yet.
You hadn't got established the mycelium enough yet. Dental plaque, you get this coating on your teeth, is a biofilm community. So if within a minute of eating anything sugary, I get the whole teeth gets covered with that biofilm. Within a minute.
Wow.
I had a client that she had candida so bad in her mouth, that's called thrush, that, remember, parasites are more active at night and on the full moon, that she couldn't sleep at night. And we got rid of that. She was a willing participant. So within a month, she was rid of that, and then we ended up doing fertility work. She was so impressed. But I saw pictures of her mouth. It was like the fungus in her stomach, because she had low stomach acid, had grown up and found its way up into her mouth. Really, this stuff in here was just gross. And within a month, it was all better. Her tongue, forget about it. Oh my God.
What'd you do? What'd you do?
Well, we cooked them out, first of all. So there's this thing, you got to get stomach acid levels up. But if you have an ulcer or a paper thin stomach lining, then you have to build the lining up first. And there's this dicey dance of that, because you've got to get those acid levels up to cook stuff out. Chronic sinusitis is a biofilm. Stenotic arteries and coronary artery disease may be related to biofilms around the heart. Isn't that interesting? Alzheimer's and many other brain conditions may be related to biofilms in the head and the brain. That is fascinating. Oh yeah, here's a good one. Molds create biotoxins or mycotoxins to defend themselves. Remember my story of feeling like an elephant trampled on me when I wouldn't feed the yeasty beasties? Well, they do that. Here's a good one. The intelligence of normal bacteria to that of mold is like that of a cabbage to an elephant. The intelligence of normal bacteria to that of a mold. So we're saying that mold is far more critical in their thinking than bacteria. And then parasites are elephants squared in the microbial intelligence kingdom.
Mold is what?
Mold is 1,000 times smarter than bacteria, and parasites are 1,000 times smarter than mold. That's what they're saying.
Can you give an example of that?
Well, the behavior that I've seen in my life, just keep it from direct experience, is if you try to treat Lyme or mold, but you've got parasites living in your body that know that you're trying to wipe them out, they're going to go hide somewhere. It's why 9 out of 10 parasite tests via the stool show negative when I know that people have parasites, because they know what you're thinking. And so they go hide when you get the test. I'm not joking. And so one of my teachers that I really appreciate said, you have to start on the macro level and get the parasites out. Why? Because the parasites have mold and the parasites have Lyme. So if you kill the lower level organisms, the bigger ones are still pooping out the bad stuff. So you start at the top of the food chain and wipe out the big bugs first, and then work your way down to small from there. And that's why I started to see this intelligence thing. Was like, I started to confront them directly. You can't even think about them in a certain way, right? Like I told you, you got to do the unexpected. So I would literally do an unexpected enema. I wouldn't be thinking about it all day, and then suddenly I would just launch into a parasite enema.
Is the same with all parasites?
I'm going over what this guy's saying, you know, so I'm.
I was wondering,
What
when
do you
people
do?
get a lot of different, a lot of different kinds.
So Drew, bacteria is sort of autonomous. Mold a little less so, and virus is even less so, right? Because mold has to land on something to grow, right? To have a food source. And so mold is more intelligent because it's involved with your own tissue at some point. It gets involved in it, right? Bacteria don't establish a mycelium. They'll make a biofilm on top, but they won't dig down into the flesh. And the parasite itself will eat into the flesh and become a part of you, because it'll lay its eggs, and then you get little wormy critters cruising around with that. Ugh.
Little quiz, what was the grossest part of this evening?
I know. Okay, I'm going to end with the shapeshifter slide, and then I'm going to finish this on the Friday before the cleanse, because I'm going to knock you guys out with that stuff. So the sneak preview, though, is that the lowest level of organisms that are associated with the lowest level of consciousness, they called mucorrhesmosis, Gunther Enderlein, and that's the lowest level energetic state. I'm not going to go in that now, but he calls these living proteins. And they infected the whole family of mammals millions of years ago. And the low stages of this endobiont, as he calls it, fulfill vital functions within the organism. So they guarantee blood clotting. And we have this blood clot thing with COVID. Isn't that interesting? They make up protein content of fibrin and thrombocytes. As protein, they also guarantee viscosity and flowing properties of the body fluids. They act as protein acid buffers. Remember, this acid alkaline argument is horseshit on some level, because amino acids are your main pH buffer in your body, and they're inherently amino acidic. There's a lot more mystery to pH than we originally realized. So these lower level organisms, they do fulfill vital functions, and they're part of our evolution, but they're keeping our consciousness down, right? Because they have cravings. The next level up is Aspergillus niger, and that's it's a fungus, right? It's a higher valence than this one. According to these people, I'm not going to go into the debate around it so much right now, we can later. And there's another set of functions. And then the highest one he calls penicillin chrysogenum. And I believe these are metaphorical names for states of consciousness associated with the gut. But I'll go into it more next time. It's just that I have seen in my life this change in my own existence, from the lowest level, what I grew up with, to these higher levels now after cleaning out the apartment. Because if you have a rotten apartment, you're going to attract rotten tenants. And that's what I want to leave you with is, a lot of this is our own decision. Is what do I want living in me and partnering with me in my space, my earth suit? Because that's why I don't take medications. It's been 30 years last time I took a medication, because I don't want that form of consciousness in my body. The American Medical Association is inherently parasitic, and so are their medications. I'd rather go to my grave trusting nature than some asshole with an ego developing some chemical formula thinking he knows what the fuck is up when he doesn't. I'll die by nature's hand anytime. So consider that as you move forward with your life is like, you are responsible for your health. You are responsible for your own decisions, and to look at your triad, victim, hero, perpetrator, where you stuck. Because many people right now are stuck in victim mode, believing germ theory, when germ theory is the most idiotic thing in the planet. And I'm happy to say that publicly. Sure, if you live next to a cesspool, you're gonna have trouble. But just go walk Zach Bush. You know, and him and I would talk about the same thing for 30 years. You know, get your gut straightened out, but get your accusers straight first. And question everything. You know? Thank you, folks. That was a nice talk tonight. Signing off. 9:06. Oh my God. Jody didn't join us, unfortunately. So.